Plans to improve multiple Ardmore streets move forward this week. Local ballots are set for the April 7th election. And Ardmore High School's production of a Tony Award-winning story takes us to the spelling bee this weekend. All of this and more on This Week in Ardmore from Ardmore Leader. I'm News Director Michael Dean Smith. Thanks for downloading episode 50 of This Week in Ardmore, a weekly podcast from Ardmore Leader, dedicated to independent coverage of local news. Let's catch up on a few things I was able to follow around Ardmore, Oklahoma for the week of February 6th. Multiple streets across Ardmore are the target of upgrades. The Ardmore City Commission back on Monday approving more than $522,000 to resurface 9 streets across Ardmore. The city's interim engineer telling commissioners on Monday that the streets were selected to make sure work would be happening in all 4 wards across the city. Another vote by city commissioners this week extends design plans for Plainview Road about 900 feet further south than originally planned. The Carter County Commission this week applied for a federal grant to help rehabilitate several roads. The county is again applying for a $300,000 community development block grant to be administered by the Southern Oklahoma Development Authority to chip and seal 4 roads totaling about 10 miles. The District 1 commissioner during Monday's meeting said that the county applied for the grant last year without success. County commissioners also approved an agreement with Grady County to house inmates that cannot be held at the Carter County Detention Center. According to a copy of that agreement, Carter County will pay $55 per day to house those inmates, with the sheriff saying that the medical situations may arise that local facilities cannot accommodate. The April ballots for Ardmore voters are set following a crowded filing period for the Ardmore City Commission. Incumbent at-large Commissioner Doug Pfau this week filed for a 5th term on the City Commission, with challengers Scott Stahl, Buddy Simon, and Brian Henry Edge all filing for the citywide representation position as well. Some Ardmore voters will consider a Plainview bond proposal, and others will consider an Ardmore City Schools Board race between incumbent Harry Spring and challenger Jimmy John. All Ardmore voters will also help choose the multi-county representative to the Southern Tech Board of Education between incumbent Georgia Ann Westfall and challenger Catherine Roaring. Elsewhere across the county, elections are set in Healdton and are mostly set for Lone Grove. Out in Healdton, City Commission incumbent Travis Shaw will face Bobby Cheney for that at-large seat. And in Lone Grove, they'll see at least 2 races, one between Christopher Provendo and Jed Petrie for seat 1, and then a second race between Dean Everett and Stephen Smithers for the seat 2 position. But an unexpired seat 3 position with 2 candidates, well, that only has 1 qualified for the position. Sitting incumbent Jake Welch filed for the election, but election officials on Friday said that his challenger, Gary Heller, does not live in Lone Grove's Ward 3, meaning that if he were to win the election, he wouldn't be able to actually serve in the position. Now, according to the county's election secretary, Diane Hall, there were 2 options to remove Heller's name from the ballot, but they would have had to have been done before a Friday deadline. And by the time that 5 p.m. deadline came and went on Friday afternoon, Heller had not removed his own name from the ballot, which had to be done in person, and Welch decided just before 5 p.m. that he would not challenge his opponent's eligibility, which would have cost $250. So, as a result, Heller's name will appear on the April 7th ballot, despite him being ineligible for that position. Ardmore Schools announced a date change for graduation ceremonies later this year. The new date has been set for Friday, May 22nd at 7 p.m. at Noble Stadium. Monday's announcement from the school district of the new date said that the original date actually coincided with another district's graduation ceremonies, and they found out that some families would have had difficulty attending. This week's announcement included also an alternative graduation site at the neighboring Performing Arts Center if rain prevents that May 22nd outdoor ceremony. Ardmore High School's Fine Arts Department has a 3-day run of their musical, the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. That's beginning on Friday evening and running through Sunday afternoon. Now, not only did I get invited to a dress rehearsal back on Wednesday, but I was also able to speak with some of the cast members to talk about the story, their characters, and about some of the improvisation that they have to do. These local students bringing all of this to life at the Jerome Westheimer Center for the Performing Arts this weekend. I also learned that an anonymous donation to the center means that all school-aged children in Carter County can attend that show for free. Up on the website this weekend and in our printed newsletter, we've got our weekly column taking a look at being your own healthcare advocate. So whether you're learning how to use a provider's scheduling app, or maybe you're just trying to keep your cool when you're on the phone with staff, you can read this week's column along with some other previous editorials and letters to the editor over on the opinion section of the website, ardmoreleader.com. After the news, we'll catch up with Ardmore financial advisor Cody Steele. We'll get a look at how some stocks of local interest are performing, and we'll hear his market snapshot commentary from Friday. And now that Ardmore Leader has officially been around for 1 year, well, that means we can start looking back at what was happening this time last year, here a bit later in the podcast. But for right now, that's the headlines. Now let's really get into the details of what happened this week in Ardmore for the week of February 6th, 2026. City officials have moved ahead with several street projects across Ardmore, from extending improvement plans along Plainview Road and targeting 9 other streets across town for repairs. The Ardmore City Commission on Monday approved $522,000 for a street improvement project aimed at various streets across Ardmore. Interim City Engineer Michael Edge told commissioners on Monday that over 2 miles of streets were considered based on where they are in the city.
We've selected these streets also in part due to we have covered at least each of the 4 wards throughout the whole city.
Now, in Ardmore's Northwest Ward, both Maxwell Street and Cottonwood Street, and each of those between Harris and Robeson, both of those streets are set for resurfacing, along with a portion of Mount Washington Street north of Veterans Boulevard up to the entrance of Murray State College. In the city's Northeast Ward, we've got 4th Avenue North between K Street and P Street, scheduled to see more than 1,600 feet of roadway resurfacing, and then another 100 feet of repairs set for 3rd Street Northeast between North Washington and Caddo Street. P Street Northeast near Cardinal Park will also see about 1,800 feet of resurfacing. In Ardmore's Southwest Ward, P Street Southwest between Hollingsworth and 7th Street will be resurfaced. And in the Southeast Ward of Ardmore, the roughly half mile of Stolfa Street was designated as a bid alternate, and both sides of Douglas Boulevard from 8th Avenue Southeast southward to 10th Avenue Southeast will also be resurfaced as part of that project. Ardmore-based Overlands Corporation submitted the lowest of 4 bids received by the city and was subsequently awarded the project. City commissioners on Monday also agreed to spend another $89,000 on a project to improve Plainview Road. Edge told commissioners that the original project was ending about 900 feet further north, and that this week's contract amendment will push the project closer to the area's southern city limit.
900 feet is a long way, but from the scale of the project, relatively small. And we found that it did, in fact, need more reconstruction instead of just a mill and overlay to fully deal with the Plainview Road.
This is the 3rd contract amendment with TEIM Designs for the development of construction plans for upgrades to portion of Plainview Road and Mile Road. The additional cost represents about 33% of the previous $270,000 cost, bringing the new design cost totals to just under $360,000. Efforts to repair almost 10 miles of roads in Carter County continue this week when county commissioners applied for a $300,000 federal grant. Commissioners back on Monday agreed to apply for this Community Development Block Grant, or a CDBG grant. This is a federal grant intended to serve low and moderate income areas with investments into living environments and economic opportunities. And if approved, the grant would be administered by the Southern Oklahoma Development Association and would end up seeing work done on 4 roads: Dixon Road, Sandy Creek Road, Hawksbar Road, and Edgewood Road. Several votes by the commission this week approved the grant application, the SOTA administration of that grant, and a public hearing to discuss the proposed project. District 1 Commissioner Joe David McReynolds said that the county has actually applied for the same grant last year, but that the project didn't receive funds last year.
Got to do a little bit of asphalt level up and then chip and seal, and then a fog seal over the top of it.
Also, during Monday's regular Carter County Commission meeting, an agreement with Grady County will allow local detention authorities to transfer inmates that cannot be held at the Carter County Detention Center. Sheriff DJ Long on Monday said that the issue often comes down to medical situations.
In the event that we have an inmate that we don't have the ability housed because we don't have the facilities to accommodate them. We have the ability to ship them off to Grady County and they'll house them for us. We've had that come up on a couple of occasions, and recently it's one that we had to do something about it. So.
Now, while the events portrayed in the play, the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, might briefly descend into chaos, the production by Ardmore High School, set to run this weekend at the Jerome Westheimer Center for the Performing Arts, is a top-notch musical with plenty of jokes, emotion, some improv, and, of course, a few spelling mistakes. The middle school spelling bee set in the fictional Putnam County, it follows a group of students as they navigate the competition. That also follows the grown-ups who are tasked with moderating the event and trying to keep it running smoothly. Here is Ardmore High School junior Ella Moen. She plays former National Spelling Bee finalist Marcy Park in the play.
I think there are a lot of different themes per character. Like everyone has their own little storyline.
Mm-hmm. Now, for characters like Moen's Marcy, the expectation from someone that sings the song, "I Speak 6 Languages," well, expectations are extremely high as the bee progresses. For other characters like Olive Otrowski, making connections with fellow spellers actually comes to a pretty emotional climax as she longs for her own parents who remain absent from the audience. Here is Ardmore High School junior Kaylin Dewberry, who plays Olive.
Olive, she's very shy, and I'm also kind of shy, and throughout the show, she kind of just expresses herself, and I feel like that's really whenever I came to theater, that's what happened. I began to express myself in different ways.
Now, the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, that's the name of the play, it actually opened off-Broadway back in early 2005, and then it debuted on Broadway actually later that year. And while many of the characters are staples of the story that actually later became a book, one unique part about the production that does, in fact, carry over to this weekend's performances will be who two of the spellers are in the play. Because those spellers are actually selected from the audience during each performance, and they actually get to take part in the show. Here is Ardmore High School senior Tristan Sanchez, who plays Vice Principal Douglas Ponch, one of the adult characters tasked with reading the words to the spellers.
I feel like what's so different about it is it's such an interactive show with the crowd as well.
The Ardmore High School production of the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee opens at the Jerome Westheimer Center for the Performing Arts, coming up on Friday, February 6th at 6:30 p.m., Additional performances will be held on Saturday, February 7th at 6:30 p.m., and then a final showing on Sunday, February 8th at 2:30 p.m. Adult tickets are $15 and technically children's tickets are $5, but center staff back on Thursday told me that an anonymous donation will actually allow K through 12 students all across Carter County to attend that show for free. Hey, do you have some good news you want Ardmore to know about? We can actually feature your announcements online, in print, and on the podcast for free. Visit ardmoreleader.com and then check out the announcement page to submit your birth, engagement, or anniversary announcements. Right now, let's catch up with Ardmore financial advisor Cody Steele to hear how some stocks of local interest are performing, and we'll get his Edward Jones market snapshot commentary from Friday afternoon.
This is financial advisor Cody Steele from Edward Jones, bringing you the daily financial market report. Stocks rebounded strongly on Friday as dip buyers came out in force. The S&P 500 index erased declines of as much as 1% in overnight futures trading to climb a full 2% over the session, with this surge bettered by a 2.5% gain in the Dow Jones Index, which hit a new record high above the 50,000 mark, and a 3.5% jump in the small-cap Russell 2000 Index. The swing in sentiment comes at the end of a bumpy week in stocks, particularly for some tech names, on concerns around the potential disruption from AI to software services and the eye-watering spending plans of some of the tech giants. As risk sentiment improved, we saw bonds sell off, with the yield on the U.S. 10-year Treasury note up 2 basis points over the day. The dollar was steady against a trade-weighted basket of currencies, as was the West Texas Intermediate oil, as investors continue to monitor geopolitical strains between the U.S. and Iran. Gold prices and silver prices move higher, but remain well below their 2026 peaks. Amazon's announcement that it plans to spend $200 billion this year on data centers, chips, and other equipment was the latest eye-catching headline around AI investment, adding to news from Meta, Alphabet, and Microsoft over recent days. This takes the total planned spending on AI-focused investment in 2026 to $650 billion across the group. This represents a full 60% increase in spending across the group in year-over-year terms as the push to lead the AI revolution intensifies. The scale of this investment looks to be without recent precedent, and markets are naturally becoming concerned about the size of outlay and the return on this spending. Amazon acknowledged that capital expenditures would weigh on profitability this year, and its shares fell nearly 10% in extended trading. While many of the underlying fundamentals around sales growth and profitability among the mega-cap technology companies continue to look positive, the market appears to be becoming more discerning around identifying the winners and the losers from this race, especially as the tremendous rates of capital expenditure spending could make some names more asset-heavy over time, weighing on margins and valuations, in our view. While tech names were rebounding this morning, the big theme of 2026 so far, in our view, remains a rotation away from some of these more expensive stocks that have led the market performance over the recent years. This has left the NASDAQ index trading around 1% lower year to date, while the Russell 2000 index is now up around 7.5% following today's surge. And while international developed markets equities are up around the 7% mark for the year. The broadening in domestic market leadership has been supported by a solid-looking economic fundamentals, with today's University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey pointing to rising confidence and lower inflation expectations in February. Meanwhile, earnings growth is broadening across the corporate sector, with 79% of S&P 500 names beating estimates so far this earnings season, with the average upside surprise of 8.2%. As a result, earnings growth estimates have risen to 11.4% from 7.2% at the end of the quarter, reflecting growth across 8 of the 11 sectors. This supports our recommendation for a diverse allocation across domestic, mid, and large cap stocks, international equities, and emerging market equities. Today, U.S. equities closed higher. The Dow closed up 1,207 points, or 2.47%, at 50,116. The NASDAQ closed up 491 points, or 2.18%, at 23,031. The S&P 500 closed up 134 points, or 1.97%, at 6,932. And in the bond market, 10-year Treasury yields are trading at 4.21%, higher by 0.01 percentage points. In stocks of local interest, Walmart was up $4.24 to $131.18 a share. Dollar General was up $1.76 to $146.66 a share. Dollar Tree was up $4.23 to $123.83 a share. Albertsons was up 30 cents to $18.09 a share. OG&E was down 2 cents to $43.96 a share. Best Buy was up $2.24 to $70.42 a share. ExxonMobil was up $2.94 to $149.03 a share. Devon was up 64 cents to $43.81 a share. O'Reilly's was up $1.36 to $94.22 a share. And lastly, Ollie's was up $5.79 to $112.50 a share. In commodity markets, the price of crude oil was up 19 cents or 0.3% at $63.50 a barrel. And the spot price of gold was up $87.40 or 1.79% to $4,977 an ounce. This has been today's Financial Market Report, brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cody Steele, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 333 West Main Street, Suite 275 in Ardmore, Oklahoma. If you would like additional information, please contact me at 580-223-3870. Daily commentary is also located on our website at edwardjones.com.
Ardmore Leader recently marked 1 year since launching a website, a podcast, and essentially becoming Ardmore's only locally owned newsroom. And as a result, now we can do a quick review of what was happening 1 year ago with a new brief segment, this time last year. Back on February 7th, 2025, Ardmore Leader published our second episode of This Week in Ardmore that included an interview with an official from the Ardmore Development Authority. She was talking about a survey that at the time was available to residents as officials were working on building an economic strategic plan for Ardmore. Well, as it turns out, advisors received a total of 550 survey responses from Ardmore residents that became part of a larger set of data and feedback that helped develop a path for the future of Ardmore's economy, especially in response to that 2023 closure of the Michelin plant. As a result, an 83-page report based on that data would go on to be released back in July, and it is still available on Ardmore Leader's coverage on the website, ardmoreleader.com. Does your group or organization have a public event coming up? Every episode of This Week in Ardmore wraps up with the schedule to give listeners an idea of just a few things happening around town. Make sure you email your event details to connect@ardmoreleader.com. You can also call or text me, 580-319-9688, and tell me all about it. Thank you so much for downloading episode 50 of This Week in Ardmore, our area's original weekly news and public affairs podcast from our area's only locally owned newsroom, Ardmore Leader. You've heard about the weekly printed newsletter we distribute around town. You can actually get a digital copy of that sent directly to your email every Friday. Check out the website, ardmoreleader.com, and then scroll to the bottom of the homepage and get signed up for free. And make sure you're following us online as well. You obviously have the podcast, so make sure you're subscribed. Links and details for the podcast are on our independently owned server, listen.ardmoreleader.com, or just search for Ardmore Leader wherever you stream music and podcasts. We're also centralized and decentralized social media, like Facebook, Mastodon, wherever you are, just search Ardmore Leader. You can also find our content paywall-free at ardmoreleader.com. Earlier in the podcast, I mentioned about the column up on the website about being your own healthcare advocate. That's going to be up on the website this weekend. I want to know, what's your experience with the local healthcare industry? If you want to see your thoughts published locally, or maybe you want to be part of the podcast, you are invited to sound off on the podcast, on the website, in that newsletter. Visit ardmoreleader.com and submit your letter to the editor there. Or you can record a voice note on your smartphone and then email that to soundoff@ardmoreleader.com and hear your thoughts right here on the podcast in your own voice. Make sure you keep any recording under 60 seconds and include your full name in the email so you can stand behind your statements. If your group or organization has a public event coming up, let me know and I'll get it on the schedule. This is a weekly calendar of events on our area's original local news podcast, This Week in Ardmore. In public meetings next week, the Carter County Commission will hold their regular meeting on Monday morning, February 9th at 9 a.m. at the County Administration Building on the corner of A Street and Broadway in downtown Ardmore. That agenda is available on the county's website, cartercountyok.us. Are you an unpaid caregiver for a family member? Local research wants to hear from you about local services for you and your family. An area student working on their master's degree in public health? They're looking for unpaid caregivers to interview for their research about those local support services. If you'd like to share your experience, call Joe at 405-440-3449 to set up an interview and share your experience. Celebrate Black History Month this weekend with a visit to HFV Wilson Community Center for a Sunday celebration. Beginning at 3 p.m. on Sunday, February 8th, reflect, celebrate, and Beginning at 3 p.m. on Sunday, February 8th, reflect, celebrate, and uplift a legacy as a community with songs, skits, a guest speaker, and a tribute to the Divine Nine, fraternities and sororities that have empowered generations of Black Americans for over 100 years. The Black History Month celebration at HFV Wilson Community Center is happening on Sunday, February 8th, beginning at 3 p.m. Have you ever found an old arrowhead, maybe an old piece of pottery or some other sort of cool artifact that you don't know so much about? Well, if you're looking for some background on it, a free program hosted by the Oklahoma Anthropological Society might help you out. Coming up on Saturday, February 14th at the Ardmore Public Library, those artifacts can be examined on a first-come, first-served basis by local archaeologists to try and identify your find. This Artifact Identification Day will be coming up on Saturday, February 14th from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the Ardmore Public Library. Do you want to speak up about an issue, but you just don't really know how to do it? Turns out the Oklahoma Policy Institute is coming to Ardmore later this month to host advocacy training to turn values into actions. Learn how to call or write your lawmakers, find out how to share your own story effectively, and then get involved in real campaigns and action groups. This is happening at the Ardmore Public Library coming up on Thursday, February 26th from 6 p.m. until 7:30 p.m. You can register for free by visiting the Oklahoma Policy Institute's website, okpolicy.org. I'm Ardmore Leader News Director Michael Dean Smith. Thanks for listening to episode 50 of This Week in Ardmore. Follow us online, ardmoreleader.com, or on social media. And until next Friday, I hope you have a positive week ahead.